And the fifth area, I think that, now this one did surprise me, was that actually many of the women said they secretly admired Muslim women. So when they saw Muslim women in their lives, in their everyday lives, they actually saw a dignity. They saw, so I'll give you one example. One lady was telling me she went to school with Muslims, right? So I think this is also a thing now. Obviously, a lot of people have grown up with Muslims in there as their peers.
Yeah.
And she said, it always used to strike me that the Muslim girls seemed so like looked after, you know, like they had a father, so this lady, she grew up without a father, you know. She said they had a father, they had order in their lives. I think that theme of chaos actually keeps coming up, chaos and order, seeing Islam as the order. And they kind of, although they didn't really necessarily like the hijab, some of them, you know, the idea of covering, it seemed like suppressive or repressive. They at least admired in the girls that they didn't have the chaotic lives that they did, you know. And I think that admiration stayed with some of them from their school days. One of the ladies said she grew up in Birmingham, a big Muslim community there. Yep. And because of her exposure to Muslim women there, she just had a natural admiration for the way Muslim women dressed, the way they conducted themselves. So that was interesting. Some of them even said that they practiced wearing the hijab before they became Muslim. They would just stand in front of the mirror and practice. Yeah. They liked the idea of being covered. They didn't like the idea of constantly being exposed, feeling like you have to always perform, you know. Every time you go out, there's a certain number of things a woman has to do in order to kind of be accepted. Otherwise, she'll be treated as less than, right? She'll lose her status as a woman. And so they liked the idea of not being part of that game anymore, I think.
That makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah. I was very surprised at the number of women who said that either, so some of them were teachers, quite a few of them were teachers or lecturers. They had been in the past. And quite a few of them said, well, you know, it was actually a student at school, even a child at school, who would always share things about Islam with me, and eventually invited, you know, his parents, the child's parents invited me to their house, or my student at university gave me a copy of the Quran. Yeah, one lady she taught English as a foreign language, English for students of other languages, ESOL, right, teacher. And she said that it was women in her class who, as a gift, gave her a copy of the Quran. So yeah, I think the Quran is definitely number one, you know, the Quran and Tawheed, and the more they learnt about the teachings of Islam. But all of these other elements, I think are very important. Were very important in, I think, attracting them to Islam in the first place.
And these are all excellent reasons, actually, because they touch the spiritual, the Tawheed, the Quran, they touch the social, they touch what it means to be a woman, they touch the toxic effects of modernity, Western modernity, and so on. These are actually very rational, and even wise reasons. They are full of wisdom, and so these are very positive, I think. And so in that sense, it's not surprising that so many women are attracted to Islam. But what is sad is that many women and many men as well don't know the truth about Islam, but that's another subject, of course. But when they do discover the truth about Islam, then these things become quite real.
Absolutely. I think what it also helps us to realize, those of us who are involved in da'wah or who want to share the message with people, is actually that although Tawheed, the Quran, the Islamic teachings is a very important part of that, it's by no means the only part. You know, all of these other, what you could call soft skills, like things like inviting people to your house, you know, like making them feel welcome, not assuming. So with number 5, the admiration for hijab and Muslim women, what I got from that was actually that sometimes us as Muslim women in the West, we feel like people are looking down on us, you know, or are constantly seeing us as weirdos, and you know.
All those problems. I mean, you see this in France at the moment, where women's dress is again being problematized and stigmatized and targeted by the state at the highest level. I mean, I saw Macron on video yesterday in French saying, you know, we will assign officials to the schools next week, and we will ensure that no no woman will be allowed to come in dressed as she was. That we will make it happen. Now, this is like the president of the French Republic who is concerned on television to explicitly target Muslim women. I mean, what a huge thing to do. It's like as if the King of England went out of his way to talk about a rather small percentage of the population and specifically target them. It's very victimizing. It's very intrusive and almost persecutory. The state should take such a strong interest in the way that when women dress modestly, and this is somehow contrary, and it is made to seem to be contrary to the values of French society. In other words, so there is a political dimension, and there is the implication that Muslims are not really French as well. Yeah. So it triggers all sorts of appalling kind of historic memories of French occupation of Algeria and so on. It's still the same DNA, I'm trying to say, running through the French state. Nothing really has changed, many would argue, I think.
Absolutely, and I thought it was quite ridiculous, actually. There was I don't know, I think a French minister or some kind of advocate for this abaya ban, as they call it, on Al Jazeera. And he was saying that the Muslim lady was saying to him, well, the abaya is not, strictly speaking, a religious garment. It's, it can be a cultural garment as well, right? It's a cultural garment. And he said, well, the fact is that nowadays, the people who wear it are the Muslims, and usually the religious Muslims. Okay, so, and that's why it's a problem. And I was thinking, okay, so if Muslims suddenly adopt flowery dresses, right, as our thing, as our thing that all Muslim women will wear, are you going to ban that because now it's identified with Muslims so much? It's amazing how
that particular individual, I forget his name actually, who's the Secretary of State for Education in France. I looked him up on Wikipedia because he's a very young guy, actually, at least to my eyes. And he describes himself. He describes himself as gay. He says he is Jewish. And living with his partner and so on. So we have a gay Jewish guy who is issuing instructions about how Muslim women should wear their clothes. And I found that really quite interesting, to put it more strongly than that kind of dynamic. And this is public, this is the public dynamic, this is what he is, he represents. It's kind of the Jewish gay take. I'm not saying that this is a Jewish gay take, but there is also that dynamic going on, that him representing that is disapproving of Muslim women and how they dress. And it leaves a bad odor about the whole thing, I think.
But of course, the laws there also discriminate against Jews, Orthodox Jews, and
exactly. And traditional Catholics, but these are small, very small numbers of people.
Exactly, yeah.